All right. My name is Rich Schmidt. We're here with Ken and Dana Pearlman. It's October 17th, 2024. We're at Pearlstad Vineyard in the Yosemite Hills. Ken and Dana, thank you so much for joining us today. First question, let's start with, why wine?
Why wine? Boy, we've been involved in wine, and we've been wine lovers for a very long time. We met in college, and our first wine experiences, I think, were $1.99 Blue Nun.
Yeah, so that's what you used to bring me in college.
Yeah, $1.99. Well,
that's probably all I would drink anyway.
Let's be fair. We were also drinking like $1.99, 6 packs of beer. Or was it 99 cents? I can't remember.
Lucky
lager for 99 cents. I think it went up to $1.99 eventually. But so we've been, I don't know, we got involved and we started drinking and enjoying wines very early on. I mean, college, so she wasn't even 21 yet, so we used to go out to bars and we'd sneak her in.
And get kicked out.
Sometimes we'd get kicked out, sometimes we didn't. So, and we would go to dinners and we would order like a bottle of wine, again,
Yeah, I think it mainly started when we moved up to San Jose from college. And then that was not that far from the Russian River and all the stuff down in San Lucia Highlands.
And people don't know it, but there's actually a wine industry in San Jose, in Morgan Hill, down there. There are a lot of really good wines.
Almaden started there.
Yeah, Almaden was down there, and what's the other big one? But so, I don't know, we just started wine tasting, and very locally, and then we started going further, and like Dana said, Russian River. An hour, or maybe 90 minutes away. And we started going up and tasting, and I think like a lot of people, we started not drinking Pinot and Chardonnay. We started out drinking Zinfandel and Syrah, nice juicy Syrahs and Cabs, and eventually migrated over to Pinot, which is a whole nother story.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know why. But we're that couple who got involved in wine very, very early on, and it just grew. We're the classic story. We started out with these wines, and we went to these wines, and then we ended up in these other wines. It's not like we don't like everything. We like all the wines, but we moved to Half Moon Bay in, I don't remember.
86.
86. We ended up living there for 33 years. And that's kind of where the wine story really got intense. But Dana was working at Genentech in South San Francisco. She ended up working there for, I think, 33 years. She retired from Genentech. And I probably had 10 jobs in that period. And,
I was supposed to be the stable one with the benefits while he did all these other careers.
Right. So we both started out in technology. Dana was obviously a biochemist at Genentech, scientist, and I was a chemist in the Silicon Valley, businesses, semiconductor industry, but also other industries. Did mostly research in chemistry and thin films and liquid crystals and things like that.
He has a patent with liquid crystals.
Yeah, I have a couple of patents, actually.
He was the first one, the windows that go dark, clear?
Mm-hmm. You've seen those.
That was his.
Opaque.
And then they go, here's your $100. And that's when he decided, I'm going to business school and I'm going to make money for myself, not thank you very much for your contribution.
Right. So one of my bosses at the time had gotten an MBA, and another one had gotten a PhD, and so you can see what the potential is. And I kind of figured that I was doing pretty interesting stuff and I enjoyed it, but I wasn't going to make a ton of money without going a little bit further. You don't make a ton of money in the lab. Mm-hmm. You have to get out some way. And so I went to business school. And then it was weird because I ended up not going back to the labs. I still worked in technology, but I ended up working on Wall Street for a few years. I was a financial consultant for Merrill Lynch. I went and did their training program for like 3 or 4 weeks in New Jersey. And did that for a couple of years and ended up finishing up my MBA. And after the MBA, I went to work for a small, they're a pretty small research company, basic research, company called DataQuest. They ended up being bought by Dun & Bradstreet, which is, again, basic data and research company. And I was involved in the semiconductor business, doing research on semiconductor companies and writing reports about semiconductor companies and making recommendations about semiconductor companies and consulting.
Well, it's because you had the technical background to understand what they were doing, and then you could then do the finance.
So it turns out that an MBA, business degree, and a technical background, pretty useful, especially in Silicon Valley. They need people like that. I ended up kind of moving more towards the finance side. So I ended up spending like 10 years on what we call the sell side on Wall Street. I never worked in New York. I always worked really hard to stay in San Francisco. So I spent, I guess most of my career in San Francisco. But working for Wall Street firms, Dean Witter, Morgan Stanley, Merrill Lynch, and doing investment banking in Silicon Valley. So taking companies public, writing research reports, and doing industry analysis, following the industry, just knowing everything that's happening in the industry. That was what I did. And then I spent the last 20 years in venture capital. So I kind of transitioned from investment banking into venture capital, because everything we were doing in venture capital and investment banking is very early stage stuff. I mean, these are companies that literally, we've started companies, the classic napkin, startup where you're having drinks and, you're writing these ideas down literally on a napkin, and then you start a company. So, I mean, we literally did that. That's what we did. We started many, many companies. I invested in over a couple of dozen very early stage startup companies mostly in the solar and semiconductor business. Getting back to, how does this all connect to wine? We had moved to Half Moon Bay because she was working at Genentech, and I was working in San Francisco mostly, but then I worked for San Jose, in San Jose for a few years. And yeah, so I would go, 30, 40 miles north or 30, 40 miles south, depending on where I was working, and she always just went, about 20 miles northeast to Genentech across the hill. So the thing that really got us into wine was I guess it was 97 or 98 in Half Moon Bay, a nice couple opened up a wine and cheese shop.
It was a very small town. There was really
there was
nothing.
Nothing. There was really nothing there. But these folks who eventually ended up being very close friends of ours, and they're still, we're still close. They opened a wine and cheese shop, and they had this guy there that was all he would drink is Burgundy. All he would drink is Pinot. That's it.
He's the one who's serving you at the wine bar.
So he's the wine buyer, and he's tending bar, and every weekend he would put up a tasting menu. And sometimes he would have people, winemakers come in. So we met bunches of winemakers, like all in those days, it was like Adam Lee and Dumal and Francione. From San Lucie Highlands and a lot of the Russian River people. So he'd have people come in, and we kind of started shifting from cabs and Syrahs and Zins to Pinots. And part of the reason was because, we would do the tasting. We'd taste, we'd pay our $25, or it wasn't that. In those days, it was a lot cheaper. Lot. It's probably more like $5. And you would taste the 5 wines, and then you'd be hanging out, right, at the bar.
You could take any wine in the whole shop, and they had tons of different things.
It was a great shop. And so we would buy a bottle of wine to drink at the bar.
And a plate of cheese.
And you could get a plate of cheese. They'd make you up cheese and all kinds of stuff. So we'd hang out there. But he would only drink Pinot or Burgundy. So if you're going to bring a bottle to the bar, it's going to be a Pinot, right? And, or Red Bird. Otherwise, he's not going to be so thrilled about it. So it turned out that's great because, we started drinking some great Pinots and we learned a ton. And we also met some really great folks there over the years, people that we've known now since, that's like 25, 6, 7 years ago, I guess, that are still very close friends that we see. In fact, we saw them last weekend because we went to the, it used to be Pinot on the River in Russian River. Now it's called Hillsborough Crush. It's a Boys and Girls Club event. They raise a ton of money every year for the Boys and Girls Club. But they've been doing it forever. I think
almost
20.
More than 25.
Yeah, more than 25. So it's a huge event. I mean, when they first started, there was like 35 people pouring, then it was 45, 50, 60. And I think at peak there was like 90 wineries there, which is insane. I mean, there's no way you can drink half or a quarter of those numbers. But last weekend there was like 65. They do it in the plaza in Healdsburg, and it's great, really wonderful event. And so all the people that we knew, all the people that we know, we all go to that event. People we've known for years, literally 25 years, and we hang out and have dinner. And one of the good friends, one of our neighbors there, a huge wine collection, pretty wealthy. So, where we had maybe 200 cases, he had like 6,000, 7,000 bottles. But these are real wines. Like these are not. These are.
He was our European connection.
Yeah. He's Norwegian. So and one of the guys that is British, and so he has his other slant on the world of wine, but all pretty much Pinot and Burgundy. And so we had serious cellars. We were not messing around. When you have 2,000, 3,000, 5,000, 6,000 bottles in your cellar, you have some fun. So we got together every single weekend. I don't think there was ever a weekend where we didn't get, a bunch of people anywhere from, 2 to...
There were 6 primary couples that got together on a regular basis. 6
couples, but all really serious cellars.
So we were called the Half Moon Bay Pinot Mafia.
That's the Half Moon Bay Pinot Mafia.
And so we would go, it was the Mafia meeting,
And so the fellow that was a wine buyer and the bartender there at Half Moon Bay Wine and Cheese Shop, he was the godfather, the Half Moon Bay Pinot Mafia godfather. Godfather. Because he literally turned a lot of people into Pinophiles, a lot of people, because we weren't the only ones that came in there buying, Syrah and Zinfandel, and ended up drinking nothing but Pinot. So
keep your Pinot glasses there.
Yeah, we all bought. In those days it was a Riedel. Nowadays we would probably be buying, Sophie and Wald or something else, and putting them up there. But we all had our own glass there at the shop. Because we were, pretty serious customers. We'd spend tons of money there. And so almost every weekend we would get this group, and the group grew, and the next thing you know, there's this pretty tight group of six couples that had, I would say, pretty good resources. And able to buy and share some great wines.
A lot of good cooks.
Yeah, some great cooks. So at that same time, we were doing something else. We're investors. I'm an investor. That's what I do. We invest in companies. We buy and sell companies. We merge companies. That's investment banking. We were talking about starting a brewery. There was no brewery anywhere on the coast between Santa Cruz and San Francisco. There's nothing. There was no brewery for like, how much is that? 120 miles or something. I can't remember. 90 or 100. I can't remember exactly. And so we said, well, let's start a brewery. I'm really good at starting things, but I'm not really good at like making things and doing things. I'm really good at finding other people who have really good ideas. That's my job. But, I don't know if I've ever had an original idea in my life. Although maybe this might be. So we invested. We actually ran into another couple of couples. There's like a couple of couples in Half Moon Bay, a couple of couples just up like 5 miles up the road in Montara, and they were thinking the same thing. So we all got together, and we started Half Moon Bay Brewing Company in 2000.
Yeah, right in the harbor.
Right in the harbor. It's a beautiful place. It's right on the water, and of course, like every business, every business takes time. I don't care what you do. You have to give it time. You have to have capital to see things grow, especially a restaurant, because you don't get packed the first day. You need to build a reputation, and so that thing actually ended up being pretty big, right? That's a big place. I think we seat 200 plus indoors, 100 plus outdoors on the patios, right on the water, and started a wine program, like 25 to 30 wines by the glass, and then like 50 wines on the list. And so I started helping to manage that program because, of course, that's what I want to do.
Well, other people weren't interested in the wine.
Yeah, people weren't interested. It's a brewery, right? So we had our own, brewmaster, and we did really good with the beer, but it's a huge restaurant, so of course you have to have wine. So we had a really big program, and I got to go and meet with everybody. So I had lunch with like Peter Mondavi and all the Mondavis actually, and you name it, everybody that comes through, because in that world, I guess I was the wine buyer. I was the wine buyer, right? Because I got appointments with people at 10 in the morning to meet me there to taste through their wines to decide.
About drinking at 10 in the morning.
Right. So, but it's true. I mean, it's a business. You don't start just because it's wine. You don't start at 4 in the afternoon. You start at 10 in the morning and you're tasting wine.
What I loved is that we got to go to I'd take days off work in order to go to the trade tastings. Because those are so much better than.
Literally, they're huge. I mean, they're like, because they have like 200 customers, like they'll take over the whole bottom floor of the Hyatt Regency, and there'll be like 200 people pouring with like real food, not like just. So we got involved even deeper into the wine business with that. I got to meet all the producers, all the distributor people, and kind of more deep into the wine. And I can't remember when it was that I started, but I realized that I wanted to get to do even more in wine education. I'm already like overeducated. I have the BS, I have an MBA, and I also have a CFA. So I'm a chartered financial analyst, which is that's not easy. That's a really difficult. It's pretty hard. But once you have that in the finance world, it's like you're kind of blessed because the stuff that you have to learn and be able to do is what people need, and like real finance. I'm sorry, it's not accounting. It's not. It's like accounting on steroids. I mean, you have to be able to merge, on paper and merge companies and, do all kinds of stuff. And there's a lot of it is ethics. There's a huge ethics component in it. It's basically like an MBA in finance. And it takes 3 years. Anyway. So I did I have my CFA, and I thought, well, let's go ahead and start, and on one of the other programs. And I thought I'd do in those days. It was before the guild had issues. So I thought I'd do my Master Somm. But I realized that there's like the Master Somm. And then there's like the WSET, and there's also the CSW. And the CSW is basically the knowledge portion of like the Somm, because you don't need to do the service part. You just need to do the knowledge part. So I thought I'll just get that under my belt, and I did the CSW. So I'm a CSW, which means I know a little bit about wine. I had to study a lot. You have to know every region, every grape, every river, every wind.
Yes. You used to lie in bed with that binder on your chest.
You memorize maps and everything. You put everything you can possibly put on a map. Every grape, every producer, Yeah, I mean, it's impossible to remember all that, but you just need to remember it to pass, whatever, to pass a test. Then you walk out and you've forgotten 90% of it. That's not true. I mean, I studied for a year and I got, a really good score and I learned a ton. And that's kind of where we took a transition and I ended up realizing that we started this project and I just couldn't do it. I didn't have the time. And I also realized that this project is pretty big and I probably didn't need to be a master somm at that point, I felt like, I sort of can show people that we're real, we're for real. We have knowledge and resources, and I don't necessarily need to get that designation. And so that kind of gets us sort of to here, because that was 2013, 2014, and I was retiring. I retired like early, yeah, like 20, I was like 57, it was 10 years ago. So I'm 60, I'll be 68 in January, so.
You didn't totally retire in 2014. You guys had your own.
Yeah, I was kind of not working a lot though.
I know.
So yeah, so we had our own venture firm. We'd raised some money and we were investing in companies. We had, I don't know, 6 or 7 companies that we'd invested in. I was sitting on a bunch of boards, and so that's another thing about the CFA is that you have to understand compliance and everything. I mean, you have to understand all the legal stuff, and so you usually end up being a pretty good board member because you've got like all encompassing. So an MBA and a CFA, and then you add the wine part. It's kind of powerful because there are not a lot of people who understand all of those things, about a business. And so I ended up, at one point when I was working for another firm, before we started our own firm, I was sitting on like 12 boards at one time. I was like either, I was either a board member or a board observer, but I was like a board member on like 6 or 8 of them, and then I was observing on 4 or 5 of them. So I have tons of experience in how do you start companies, how do you run companies, which is kind of helpful if you're going to be running a company. And then industry analysis. You have to look at an industry and figure out, well, what am I doing here? Why am I here? Why am I doing that instead of doing something else? So it was about that time I was retiring. I had some time. I did the CFA, the CSW, and I was thinking of doing the SOM, and Dana was still working. Dana didn't retire until the end of 2019. So we've been coming up here forever. One of my oldest friends since like first grade moved up here 35 years ago. He lives in Tigard. It was a different world, as you might imagine. 35 years ago, Tigard was like, the density, the housing density there, the population it's intense right now, but 30 years ago it wasn't. And they bought a nice house and this small subdivision, which is now goes out for miles and miles. I mean, just getting into his house, it's like driving through Boston. It's crazy. But
that would come down.
Yeah, so we were up here all the time. We'd come up here 2 or 3 times a year because also in those days, 30, 35 years ago, we didn't have any money, so it was a free
wine vacation.
Free wine vacation. So we'd come up, we'd stay with them, it's free, and we would hit the wineries, whatever. And again, it was such a, there was very little here, but we would do it. And you got to realize that you go over to Archery Summit Road, and that was all dirt. There was nothing, everything was dirt. None of that stuff was paved. There were just not that many wineries there. There was only a couple actually. But we got, we got excited. We came up and we just did it. We kept doing it, and and we just watched the business, the industry develop. We did the same thing in Russian River, same exact thing. We started, first time we went to Russian River, we biked they have a barrel tasting weekend. It used to be just one day. Now it's got so huge they do Saturday and Sunday. Oh, it's 2 weekends. I'm sorry. It used to be just one day. Now it's 2 weekends. But I think the first time we did that, it was like 1985, and we biked it. And of course, so we've watched all that same thing happen there, go from just a handful of wineries to hundreds of wineries. And we got to know a lot of the winemakers, because, what would happen is we'd get the Mafia Bay Mafia, we'd literally rent a bus, and we would get 12 to 20 people on a bus. We'd shoot up to Russian River. We would hit like 8 or 10 wineries, but we would do serious damage. We would buy we would buy. So you have serious buyers going in and buying cases of wine, and you get a reputation. So we got a bit of a reputation. The Half Moon Bay Pinot Mafia we were a powerful buying group. I mean, we had people coming. We had parties at our house. We built
Jasmine Hirsch would do dinners.
Yeah, Jasmine Hirsch did a
that's back in the day.
Just for us, you had 12 people at the house, and we got a good reputation because we bought wine. And the winemakers, they like that, They appreciate it when you show up with a dozen people and you taste wine, and then you buy a few cases of wine everywhere you go. So, where was I going? Oh, 2014. So by 2014, we kind of knew this place. We'd been coming up here forever, and we'd watch stuff happen, and we came up so much. We thought, well, let's buy a place. We're not going to move up here, but let's buy a house, and somewhere in Newburgh, Dundee, McMinnville, just a place because we're up here all the time anyway. And we started looking, and I'm running around traveling, and Dana starts sending me these Zillows. She goes, look at this. It's only this really neat house for $300,000. Yeah, the next one.
Again, everything was a fraction of what.
Yeah, that $300,000 now, 10 years later, is $600,000. So the next one would be, look at this. It's $500,000, but it's got like 3 acres. Whoa! Look at this one. It's $800,000, and it's got 5 acres of Pinot already planted. But you know how it goes, right? Let's buy a place, just so we can come up for the weekend. And the next thing you know, you're talking about buying a vineyard. And so we started thinking about it. And yeah, Dana was going to retire in a few years, and we did the math, and we thought, well, we don't need to be up here to find a place and to do a vineyard. We could get that all going, and we can move up if we want, or we don't need to move up. We eventually decided we wanted to, but
We started looking for land.
We started looking. We decided, but this is an interesting part of this, because if you go back just 10 years ago, what were we going to do? We were going to plant 20 acres of Pinot in Dundee, right? I mean, that's what you do. In 2013, 2014, there was no Amity Hills, happening. Chardonnay wasn't happening at all. It just started, there was 1 or 2 people who were doing it. So we thought, well, we'll just find 20 acres to plant, and there you go. We'll have a great, and so 2014, I happened to also go. Dana was working, so she didn't go. I decided to do the Chardonnay celebration. It was 2014. I think it was the 3rd annual. Okay, it's the third annual Chardonnay celebration.
Before you did that, you had a conversation with Raj.
Yes. So that's it. This is how it comes around. But so that year was also when it was like the 50th anniversary. If you go back and look, it's like 50th anniversary of Pinot. So they were doing this, 50 years of Pinot in Willamette Valley, and it was the third Chardonnay. And that's when I started to realize what was going on. And that event happened to be, it was the War of the Clones. And I don't remember all who was on. I think, I just remember Mimi Castillo was one of the panelists, and they were beating Mimi up because they were talking about how you can't grow Chardonnay in Oregon. And they, if you know the story, they planted. Of course, what do you plant with Pinot? You plant Chardonnay. It's not Pinot Gris. Anywhere in the world, it's Pinot, Chardonnay. Burgundy is Pinot and Chardonnay. So they planted Chardonnay, but they planted the Livermore, the Wente clones from Lodi and Livermore. They're very, they do great down there. But they couldn't ripen the grapes here. In most places, they couldn't ripen them. So they pulled all that stuff out and they put in Pinot Gris, which is,
it's Pinot Gris.
It's Pinot Gris. It's not interesting, It's like $15, $18 a bottle. It's just not. But that's what happened. So they screwed the pooch on they didn't know how to plant, where to plant, what to plant in the Chardonnay. And so that's what happened. And 50 years later, people are coming around going, wait a minute, we got these Dijon clones. That should work. So now we're, if you go back 10 years, there were like the new, they weren't new at all, Dijon clones, and then what they call the heritage clones, which is just California. There's a bunch of great, the Mount Eden, the Calera, there's some great heritage clones, the Wente, and so people started to realize about then that maybe we can do this. It also, so 2014 also happened to be an interesting year because I'm pretty sure it was Isabelle Meunier who made the wine. She made the Chardonnay at Evening Land that year, and it got like 97 points. And it just, all of a sudden people are going, wait a minute, you can't make Chardonnay in Oregon? And then they did it again, and then other people started to do it. And that's when people realized, wait a minute, this is interesting. And this could be more than interesting, it could be really special. So we know a lot of winemakers. We ask, we ask for advice, and so I happen to be with Raj Parr. I can't remember exactly what it is. We talked with him a few times about this, but one of the times, I can't remember where we were, probably some event, and I was telling him what we're doing, and he goes,
That's when you were talking.
Pinot and Dundee. He goes, maybe you should consider Chardonnay. And then, so that's when I started to put it all together. It's like, Chardonnay celebration, heritage clones, Dijon clones, and then, so I went back and thought about that for a while, and then I thought, he's right. It should be Chardonnay. Chardonnay was only 4.6% of production. Anywhere else in the world, it's like 20 or 25. So go back to Raj and think, okay, this is a great idea. And go, well, where do you go? Yosemite Hills. Where else, right? Where else? Well, it's where Evening Land is, right? And they just, she's blowing the doors off with their Chardonnay. So it's like, okay, all of a sudden we go from, 20 acres of Pinot in Dundee to 20 acres of Chardonnay in the Yosemite Hills. And so this is all 2014, 2015. So 2014 was kind of figuring out, what did we want to do? 2015 was doing a business plan. So I spent the year kind of writing, doing research. I wrote, this business plan, and because I didn't know exactly what I was getting into, so I thought, well, I might need some help, some investors, right? And I didn't know, because that's what I do. That's what, if you're going to do something, you write a business plan, then you go get some investors and you do it, right? So that's what I did in 15, then we actually had a partner that was going to be a partner with us, one of our very close Pinot Mafia friends. And
The Norwegian.
they're Norwegians. And they've actually moved back to Norway. They moved back a couple of years ago. And so we're still very close friends. He was here for IPNC. We spent the week together. And he was here just 2 weeks ago. We spent a week together visiting companies, visiting wineries, because he started a wine import company, which is a whole other story. And then in 2016 was searching. So so in 2015, I also interviewed all of the vineyard management companies. I mean, I interviewed all of them because I wanted to, I knew I wasn't doing this.
I forgot how you come up with the name.
Oh, yeah.
That's part of
So that's a small thing. But so our friends are the Sukestads, and we were going to, start the company. And I was like, this is 2015. I'm going to start. I'm filing. And we hadn't sorted anything out yet, but we needed a name. And of course, so Pearlman and Sukestad. Well, Sucking Man is not a good name.
Yeah,
but Pearlstad is actually a really good name because stad is place, village, whatever. Sukestad is kind of like nice place. Sukur, comfortable place. And so Pearlstad ended up even better because, as the story goes on, you see how important that ended up being. But so 2015, writing the business plan. 2016, and figuring out who we're going to work with. So decided to work with Atlas. RP was the biggest, and they had, there's a handful of smaller people. And I had talked with them all, and I thought, I don't want to be with RP because we're not going to be that big, and I was worried. And Atlas actually has offices in Napa and Paso, and so I thought, Napa's only 90 minutes away. If I have to go and do something with them, I could do it, which I did. I had to go up to Napa a couple of times to meet with them. So we ended up going with Atlas, and Atlas at the time happened to be working with Rita Wolf, who's very experienced wine country real estate person. She knows what's going on here. She sold us this, she sold him that, she sold him that. She's involved. So we started working with Rita and looking, and we spent 6 or 8 months. We looked at, there's not so much, there just isn't. But we looked at, I would say, a dozen properties. You didn't see them all because she was working, but I would come up and now, good luck now finding anything in the Willamette Hills. It's all gone. Maybe not all, but it's mostly gone, all the best parts. And it's really we're really starting to understand the mountain better than ever, I think. There's a couple of bands of very special, I think we're in like this bench here, and we could talk about that, but the people along this bench are all pretty big, pretty successful. And then you go up, and then you've got, where Maggie is up along Nursery and Amity. That bench up along there is really kind of nice. And then you can go south from here, and you go to where Denny and Sojourn and those guys are down. Royer, that's also really kind of a neat, and Joe Dobbs is there now too. So there's these really nice areas. You can figure out where they are. I mean, look what we have here. I mean, you have Lytle Barnett, you got us, you got Abbott Claim, then you have you have Bethel Heights, and you have Christum and Witness Tree, and then this is a really Christum is, I think, one of the top. There's no question about it. They're like they're always number 1, 2, or 3. The Mount Jeff is on wine lists in the country. There was they're always like in the top 3.
You need to circle back around to how you found the spot.
Oh yeah. So we started looking, and we were working with Rita, and she would find 1 or 2 or 3 places, and I would come up and we'd go see them. And I would come up here like a couple of times a month. I would drive up or fly. Sometimes, 16 times a year. But so there was one week where Rita says, I have 3 places you need to come up and look. And I couldn't get up. I just had too much stuff. So we were working with Maggie. We were working with Mimi. In fact, there's another funny story. We have a Mimi's block up at the top. It's a different story. And so I asked Maggie to go out with Rita to look at these properties. And so they go out one day, and at the end of the day, I get an email from Maggie. And Maggie, she talks and she writes just beautifully, and it's like poetry. So she writes like one paragraph on this piece and another paragraph on the other place, and she writes like 5 paragraphs about this place, and I'm like, and it's all this stuff, and I'm like, what? What could it be? What is she talking about? And so the next week I was able to get up, and we went and looked at the other 2. Were you with me when we came up? Yeah, we went and looked at the other 2, and it's like, yeah, it's close, not quite right. And we come here, we drive up to the top. And have you been up there? It's a mile up to the top from here, and the road didn't go all the way up. So we got in the back of Scott's pickup, and we're rumbling around. But you get up to the top, and you're like, okay, I get it. Mm-hmm. I get what she's talking about. And you really couldn't see all of it because there's a meadow. There's a meadow up there, about 20 acres. And the meadow has its own special story. But you can only see maybe a quarter to a third because it's just bramble. It was just bramble. Not trees, though. Yeah. No trees. Just bramble. And, 5-6 feet high. So you couldn't really get through very far in. Lots of deer. And so, we didn't know why necessarily that meadow was there up at the top. But we did come to find out. And that's really kind of the most interesting part of the story. And that gets to terroir. And we, I think,
bought the land.
Yeah, so we ended up buying it. Yeah, so yes, we bought the land. It's 85 acres. We have 2 creeks. We have a creek right here, which actually goes underneath the barn. That's a lot of fun. And we have another creek on the east side. So we have a creek on the west side and creek. So we bought it, and we started grooming and getting everything ready. And the goal was to plant in 17. So we actually planted in 17. But we were drilling the well. This is like in May. I wasn't here. They're drilling the well, and I get this call from, who was it? I can't remember. It might have been, so at the time, we were working with Atlas, and it was Lauren Isehold, who helped us design everything. And I think she called me and she goes, we're drilling the well, and all these shells started popping out. They just came spewing out. They were at about 400 feet or something. So they call me and they go, there's all these shells, all these fossils. And they go, well, we're down here, so it must be right under, we're here, so it must be right under block 4, because they're estimating kind of where they were in the depth. And so sure enough, there were tons of these in block 4, but it turns out they're everywhere. And the reason that whole that meadow was there, that 20 acres plus or minus, is because you can't grow anything there. It's cement. I mean, this is cement. So it turns out it's an ancient. So it's an ancient seabed, right? It's an ancient shoal, really. It's not a seabed, it's a shoal. And so it's all sandstone and siltstone. they make buildings out of sandstone, all right? So, this is cement. And this goes all the way from top to bottom. So you only have, and we didn't dig these up. These are on the surface. So what happens is, if you look at it, it's a series of benches kind of like this over time, because between about 30 and 12 million years, it was about 30 million years ago, it was an inland sea. The coast range rose up. This becomes a sea. And between 30 and 12 million years, it drains, but it kind of does this. So there's a series of benches up there. And, but it's all sandstone and siltstone. It's solid rock. Yeah, I mean, this is not, it's cement. And so that kind of explains why there are no trees up there, because they can't get any purchase. They can't grow, right? I mean, they just can't. So there was one there was sort of a spine down the middle where there was, there's like maybe half a dozen firs that had managed to kind of in this thing. But other than that, it's this. And there's tons of petrified wood up there also. So when you start to talk about terroir, we didn't know this was there. We'd bought the property, we were already starting to groom, and then we're drilling for our well, and this stuff starts spewing up, and and all of a sudden we're like, wait a minute, we have white soil. We're in Burgundy, it's Chablis. But unfortunately, it's not. This is not calcareous soil, unfortunately. But it's on the way to being calcareous soil. There's so much minerality, and there's so much salinity. It kind of explains, it's pretty easy to come up with why the vineyard has the profile that it does. All the wines that you taste from this vineyard, and we have over a dozen customers, but you taste all the wines and they all kind of come sort of back to the same thing, which is you're going to get some kind of citrusy thing. Might be lime, might be lemon. And you're going to get some salinity, and because you could lick these things. I mean, this is salt. This is the bottom, right? I mean, this is, and what's the third thing? Salt. Anyway, so it's very characteristic. You're always going to get the mineral. Thank you. Glad he's here. Yes, very mineral, very salty. And I'm not sure why the citrus is there, but it always seems to be. That's probably just from the grapes. So it's that kind of sort of brings us to how we got, and also the customer base. I mean, when you start taking customers up, potential customers up, and you start, I call it harvesting fossils in the vineyard, because you can go up and this is all stuff on the surface. It's just there. There's anywhere from 0 to maybe 4 or 5 feet of topsoil.
Depending on what blew
in. Depending on where you are, and the topsoil it's just what blew in. It's not like it's not any special soil type. It's just there's a lot of loess and just dirt, dust. And so it's not an easy vineyard to farm. It really is not. We have some areas where you literally had to drill holes to plant and to break this stuff up, but it's still there. And so you have no soil, and you can see it. It's so obvious, and you just go around. You look at different rows and different spots, and it's so obvious that those grapes are having a hard time. They just are. They're having a really hard time.
Winemakers like that.
And winemakers like that. What is that? Why do they like why don't you want my grapes to suffer? Don't make my grapes suffer. But they do. They have a really hard time. It's very obvious, and you can see it. So we have to do some special stuff. We're doing a lot more fertigation, and we throw down some.
Make sure they have enough water, because
some compost, and we do what we can do, but it's still really a difficult site, and it's also very cold because we have the Van Duzer. Mm-hmm. So it's perfect for Chardonnay. It really is. It's really a tough site. It's very cold, salty, minerally.
It's a good site. So yeah, so we planted, again, we thought Chardonnay because, because Raj said so.
Okay.
And because we figured it out. It makes a lot of sense. We made a bet that Chardonnay is going to go from 4.6% to somewhere north of 15%, and it has to, and it will. And it's it's going. I think we're up to 5.5 or 6%, but it's growing. You can see people planting. Everybody's planting it. But
we still had Pommard at the bottom.
Right. We had so we planted it 18 acres. I couldn't quite. There's 20 up there, but there's another story because there's a little oak savanna up there, and I wasn't here, but they were laying everything out, and Mimi and Lauren were like, no, we're not planting that.
Can't touch
We're not touching that. Of course, it happens to be the most beautiful spot. It's the highest, most beautiful spot on the property probably, and it would be perfect for Chardonnay. But it's not, it's oaks.
It's Mimi's block.
So I call it Mimi's block because it would be a really good block. But there's no grapes there.
And then we still planted Pinot at the bottom because we were Pinot-philes. You gotta have.
Yeah,
How can you have a vineyard with no Pinot?
Yeah, we sort of choked. Lauren also choked. I talked to her about this not that long ago. I ran into her at an event and we were talking, and I told her what's going on, and she says, yeah, we choked. We had to have some Pinot, but we're grafting it over because we could sell all the Chardonnay. We could sell twice as much Chardonnay because there's huge demand. But our Pinot customer decided they didn't want it this year. And if you know what's going on in the market, it's impossible. There's hundreds of tons of excess grapes, not Chardonnay. Chardonnay, there's not enough out there, but Pinot. And if you go to California, it's everything. It's Cab. It's Merlot, it's everything down there, and hundreds and hundreds of tons are not getting sold. It's really, it's scary. So we think we did the right thing. We looked at the markets, we analyzed everything, and we said Chardonnay, and it's really worked out well. But we did choke. We put in 2 acres of Pommard, and
Well, we thought somebody would want to make a match set, They got the Chard and the Pinot, only one person's enough grapes.
That would be really a very, very unique product if you only have 2 acres of Pearlstad Pommard, and that's all there is in the world, and everybody else is making Pommard or making Pearlstad Chardonnay. So it worked for a couple of years, but the customer didn't want it this year. And we just decided it's too hard. We almost didn't sell it, and we had to discount it, and
it's the last to ripen.
Yeah, it takes a long time to ripen. So we just thought that's it. We're done this year. We're gonna graft it over. It will be. We have 6 clones. We've got 124, 76, 95, 96, 548, and Wente. And so the Wente, again, a little bit controversial, by the way, when we were planting it, because it's a heritage clone. But Mimi's like, nah, that's everything they have is heritage clone. They're making incredible wine, right? So you just need to know what you're doing and how to treat it. But anyway, bottom line is we had 2 acres of Pommard this year. It's going to probably turn into 76 and 95, which, if you know what people are used to here, those are the Dijon clones that people use. It's the most popular, and everybody will take it. It's easy to sell. It's not as easy to sell 124, which is a champagne clone, but we have sparkling customers, and they love it. And the 548, same kind of thing. People didn't really know much about it. There's almost none of it planted here.
But the ones that know about it, they really want
but now that people are figuring it out, they really want the 548. And Wente is kind of like, Wente's like politics. It's like you either love it or hate it. It's like half the people hate Wente, half the people love it. So that's fine, as long as I find the right halves and I can, I can sell it. And it's doing great. The Wente, it's just unbelievable. We sell We sell to several customers. One of them is Anna Matzinger and Matzinger Davies. And, when we first started working with her, we were both kind of skeptical. And the first couple of years, the Wente did exactly what we thought it would do, which is not a lot. It was really crap. Lots of hens and chicks, really light clusters, really low yields. And then...
the last couple has done well.
Yeah, last year, it's like, whoa, hey, the Wente showed up. It's like, whoa, look at this. It's here. And then this year, whoa, huge yields, gorgeous. I could show you pictures, gorgeous clusters, gorgeous grapes. And it's Wente. And you know what? We had a couple of customers, we couldn't give it away to them because they just like, nope, no Wente for me, nope, no Wente for me, no 124 for me, nope, don't know what it is. How much? I'll take some 76 though, or 95, I'll take all. They want to work with what they know, which is fine. Hey.
Versus some took the 124 because that was all we had, and then they go, the next year, no, I want it. They just didn't know what it was and what they can do with it. And then once they had it, and they go, oh.
I don't blame people for trying to, keep the risk as low as they can. And you work with what you know, and that helps to lower the risk. And that's all right. And also, we have a variety of customers. It's interesting to see the market. We have sparkling customers, and we have customers who understand the heritage clone, and we have customers who don't. And so that's fine. We're all right with it.
I'm curious about, you mentioned you've been coming up here a long time before coming here to settle. Tell me about what you saw in the wines as they have grown and evolved. How have Oregon wines grown and evolved in your mind?
Wow, we were very...
Back in the early 80s, I used to hate Oregon wine, and there was a lot of Brett.
Yeah, they had issues.
Which over the years they've cleaned this. It makes stunning wines now, but back then you'd be like,
And so we're not coming from nowhere. We're coming from California Pinot, and so we had a pretty good perspective. We weren't into Pinot back then. Yeah, maybe not. Maybe not that early. But still, the wines they had really bad production issues. They had mostly it was Brett, and a lot of corked wines, and a lot of TA, and
you don't see any of that.
But you don't see that now.
At all.
Yeah, we used to hate the wines. They were horsey and they were just terrible. And now you don't find that. So we saw that happen where, these wines, we would come up anyway. We were coming up no matter what because we were coming to visit our friends, and we would still taste wine. We would go out, and the wines got better and better and better. And now,
Oregon has a well-deserved reputation of quality.
I was saying we were at the Healdsburg Crush this Sunday, and the quality of the wines, it's all California, is really, really amazing. But they're different. You go drink 50 or 60 California Pinots and Chardonnays, and you drink 50 or 60 Oregon, and you are like not in the same world. You would, up here, they are very different styles.
They're not made to be a fruit bomb.
Yeah, the California wines are great, but they're much more fruity. There's much more residual sugar. They're just different wines, and they don't last. Like, we know that, it's fine. The California Pinot, I used to say California Pinots were 5 to 7 years. I'm more generous now. Maybe 5 to 8 years. No, no. I mean, I think it's true. We drink a lot of wine. We kind of taste everything, and
we just did Rickreall, right? We had some nice old Rickrealls that held up.
We were just drinking like 13s, 14s, 15s, 16 Rocciolis out of the Magnums. So it was out of Magnums. We did the tasting with Tom Rocchioli down at Rocchioli this weekend. But still,
The majority of them don't make it.
Yeah. They're California wines. We know them. Those are the wines we bought a lot of. Like when you look at the Deep Sonoma Coast Cobb, Hirsch, Literoy, there are a handful of people on the deep West Coast that make much more Burgundian styles, and they last longer. Also Anderson Valley, same kind of thing. Different. It's much colder, different climate, different everything. Those wines are not the same as in Santa Lucia Highlands and in Russian River. And the wines in Willamette Valley, again, completely different. A totally different world. And it's very obvious to us. We think it should be obvious to most people when you start. We taste a lot. We go to every event. We taste everything all the time. So we have a pretty good perspective of what's what. And, there are people who are not going to believe it. They're not going to they don't want to believe that wines could be different and that, there's actually a thing about terroir and about, AVAs and stuff. But I don't think it's deniable from our perspective because we see it, there's Oregon Pinots and Chardonnays have nothing to do with California Pinots and Chardonnays. They're just not. They're not the same, and then they don't even try to be the same. They're very different. Mm-hmm. And if you're from Oregon, you kind of like the Oregon wines. If you're from California, and you don't know anything about California anyway, if you're from California, you like the California wines, and you don't know any Oregon wines anyway.
They don't know any other part. Beaufrère, and they're going, who?
I know. I'm saying about Rocchioli. Rocchioli is one of the most famous wineries in California. You can't get on the list. It takes 7 years to get on their. Is it 7 years to get on their waiting list? I can't remember. Yeah. But you can't get their wines. But most people in California don't know them. It's a cult wine. So it's the same thing. If you're in Oregon, you don't know about the cult wines down there. If you're in California, they don't even know who Beaufrère is, who is a customer, by the way. No, they've been a customer from the beginning. It's great. They're great people. But it's really, there's no question to us. Other people, they're not going to have the same experience and perspective as us because they're not out there like we are. Mm-hmm. But I'd say at this point in my wine, drinking life, that I would totally say that there's differences in, California is not Oregon, just isn't, and Oregon is not Burgundy, but it's a hell of a lot closer to Burgundy than it is to California.
Hence why Ivan is doing out here.
Right. So our friend is Ivan Sukastad. He's the Stad in Pearlstad. He started an import business because you can't get most of these wines in Norway or in Scandinavia, and it's all state run anyway. So it's really not that easy to get any of the wines. So we're introducing him to people here, and he's got people in California too, and he's starting to import wine. So they basically, they ship pallets. So once a month. Is it once a month or once a quarter? So he spends 3 months organizing and getting everything, talking to customers, getting new customers really is mostly what it is, and getting new wines. And then they pack up some pallets and they ship them over. I guess every 3 months they ship pallets. So that's kind of interesting. He's. I have Norwegian partners in my firm. So I've been there a lot. I've been in Norway at least a dozen times easily, and all over Scandinavia, but all over the world because that's the business. The semiconductor business. It's all over. It's Asia. So I've been to China, Taiwan, Korea, Japan many times because that's the industry's there.
You talked a little bit about the terroir here and about the way it is reflected in the wines that are coming out of here. Tell me about, have you seen it evolve and mature in any way? And do you have a thought on where the vines and wines might be headed in the future?
Yeah, I think so. There were some customers we could not get at first because I think smartly and rightly, there are a lot of winemakers who just don't want to work with young fruit. So it took us a while. If you look at our customer list, we've got some startups, some young winemakers who are a little bit more generous, I guess. And then just the last couple of years, we started to get some of these guys that really didn't want to talk to us until we got to be like 5, 6, 7 years. So it's hard to tell. I would have to guess that the wines are getting better, but I think also just people getting used to the grapes. So it's hard to tell how much is really the vines and the vineyard improving versus just people just getting used to the grapes. And because we had some great, our first vintage was 2020, and there's some great wines that came out 20, even though it was a smoke year.
No Pomard.
Yeah, no Pomard. We didn't get paid for our Pomard that year, but we got paid for all the Chardonnay and some great wines, and then they've just been getting better. And also it's a little bit hard to tell because there's really a big difference in style between some of our customers are like, so Beaufrere is going to be like very, very, very different than say like John Groshaw. They both make great wines, but they're like night and day. They're not like close, but they're great, So it's hard for me to say because there's the different styles and all.
And the different mix of clones. Different clones, and so it makes it hard for the side. Oh, we did do that whole side-by-side thing with Adam Lee.
Yeah, we did that.
Last summer.
We had 5 of our winemakers here, and we tasted 7 wines. They were all 20s and 21s. Adam Lee has a group of customers that
His Clarice project.
And he brought up like 35 of his customers, and we were one of the stops.
We were the Chardonnay.
We were the Chardonnay stop because, he's all Pinot. So do you know Adam Lee?
I know the name.
All right, so he started Siduri. Siduri was bought by Jackson family. And Adam was one of the first, if not the first, California winemaker to come up here and make wine. He just he just fell in love with Oregon, and he brought the Oregon posse down and had tastings in his warehouse. It was the first time, I think, this is going back 10 years too, easily. I mean, think about that. 10, 12 years ago, he had, he would work with like Tom Elliott and, or Northwest distributors. And it was the first time I ever met, I met David Page there because he was making the wines for Adelsheim. I met John Gabelhausen from Alexana. All these people, he brought all these people down, and they were like, nobody knew anything about anything back then. But Adam is, he ended up making wines for which company? The Hawksview.
Hawksview, yeah.
Adam was making the wine for Hawksview for a year or so. So he was like a super early on California understanding Oregon. Now there's probably a dozen California wineries that are making wine up here. In fact, one of them is our customer. We have Toomey, which is now Prince Hill. So Toomey is, of course, it's Silver Oak. So Silver Oak is one of the largest, most, I don't know if they're the largest, we're probably one of the most well-known cabs in Napa. So there you go. They, in fact, they came up, they bought Prince Hill, and they have the Toomey name because Toomey is their Pinot project, but they don't do any Chard. And they rebranded it to Prince Hill, which I think is smart, because like I was just saying, people in California don't know anything about Oregon. People in Oregon, they don't know Toomey from anything.
Yep.
They don't even know Silver Oak from anything. They just don't. So why not, Prince Hill? Yeah, Prince Hill, very famous old, Dick Erath vineyard. Everybody knows it. It's very famous. So I think the rebranding was really smart. But yeah, we got great customers. We have
Nicholas J.
we picked up Nicola J last year, so they bought last year and this year. And again, they don't have really much of a Chard program at all. They have like I think 4 acres at Bishop Creek. They need Chard, and
People also want Eola.
you have to realize that, in wine, it's always the vineyard and the winemaker, right? So we were selling grapes to Aaron Kendall. Aaron Kendall was a winemaker at Beaufrere, and Aaron Kendall is married to Tracy Kendall. Tracy's making wine for Nicola J.
Oh,
She was. So Tracy been up here, Aaron loved the vineyard, and so we ended up getting them. They were a little bit concerned also about being too young, but they waited, and now they're happy. I think they're really happy with the grapes. I talked with Jay this week, and they're pretty happy. So, but again, it's like you got to follow the winemakers and the vineyards, right? That's what this is about.
Evan Martin got you into Commanders.
Yeah, so we have Evan Martin Woods. Evan is unbelievable. He is such a marketing genius. He's out there. He works so hard. He's making great wine. And he got the 21 Pearlstad Chardonnay into Commander's Palace in NOLA. Okay, it's like one of the most famous restaurants in the country.
And by the glass, too.
By the glass.
As well as the bottle.
And so we went up. We had to go. We had to. So I said, you know what? This is a once in a lifetime going. So it was great. We'd have friends who lived there, and also Mitch Frank, who's senior editor, Wine Enthusiast, lives there, and Adam's good friends with him, Adam Lee. So Adam Lee introduced us to Mitch, and we had dinner with Mitch Frank and our friends there, and we at Commander's Palace and drank Pearlstad Vineyard wine at Commander's Palace. That's pretty neat. That's very neat. But Evan's great. He's really good. His background, I think, is some of these very high-end resorts and restaurants, and so he's able to get in and place wines. It's great. But
you got other good customers. You got Domaine Divio.
Yeah, Bruno is great. So Bruno Cornio, he runs. I think he's like vineyard manager, head winemaker for Northwest. Bruno Cornio. And he's just blowing the doors off with the Chardonnay. Just killing it. He got his 21, was it the 21 Willamette Valley blend? He got like 97 points. It's a wonderful wine. All of his Chards are great. He's really good. And I think he really likes the vineyard. He's very happy with it. He's sent us some pretty good customers. So he's a good reference.
So what comes next for the two of you and for the vineyard?
Well, we have a couple more years I think, before we get this quite straightened out where we want it to be. This whole pomard thing is kind of a pain, but we feel we have to do it because it's tough. I mean, you lose a year of production, and we almost lost 2 years because we didn't sell the Pinot this year, but we finally, the very last minute, literally the very last minute, one of our customers came in and bought it, and so that's great because otherwise we would have had 2 down years, and to lose all that revenue. First of all, you have to farm it, right? You're not losing the cost part of it. You have to still farm, and you have to take care of it. And so you're losing that revenue, which is a lot that year. And then the next year, when you graft it over, no revenue. So 2 years is really bad. But thankfully, that didn't happen. We were kind of close, but it didn't quite happen.
I notice when you drive around the valley here, you see a lot of fruit still hanging. You know, that the stuff, this was just not a great year for a lot of growers.
There are hundreds of tons just here. In California, we know people who were offered hundreds of tons for free if they just wanted it. You know, it's not quite free because somebody has to pick it. And that's not so cheap. But yeah, if you wanted to, you can go down. It's maybe too late now, but you could have gotten 100 tons of Pinot from Sonoma County for nothing. So I'd like to think that there are some people who benefited from that somewhere, somehow, because I do know some stories where, not this time around, but in the past, where people have had an opportunity like that and they actually turned it into a business. It's like, yeah, I couldn't have done this, but if you're going to give me free grapes, I'm going to do it. And so there are some stories there where people actually made a business out of it. But there's no question, there's hundreds of tons that are not going to be turned into wine. You can see it. You just drive around and you'll see it out there. It's just still hanging. And if there's grapes hanging here,
this would have been our best year so far if it wasn't for the Pinot.
Yeah, this would have been great. It's okay. It's an okay year still. You know, it's a small project. It's a small business. I mean, you're not going to get rich on 18 acres. It just doesn't happen.
And it doesn't help that all your customers want more grapes, and you're going, unless somebody backs out, there is no more. You know.
Yeah, we actually have a waiting list. We have probably at least half a dozen people that would buy grapes if we had them, which is great. You know, it's really nice. It's better than to not have that.
And you have land that
and we could plant.
We could, but we just don't know it this age. You know, unless we have somebody else who wants to partner up to do that.
But I guess to answer your question, we try and have a 2 to 5 year plan. But the 2-year plan is, we really want to get this thing really nice and done. And it's never done. Nothing's ever done. But to be able to market it as a 100% Chardonnay vineyard, not sell it, market it, but to brand it 100% is, I think, helpful. We've kind of been doing that anyway. We sort of ignore the Pommard, but this time it really will be 100%, and I think that's great. I think it's great branding. So at least 2 years before that really happens, and then I'll feel really good about it. There's some other things on the, just infrastructure stuff that we want to do. There's, like Dana was saying, there's probably 8 to 10 acres here that we could plant, but I don't think that's on our watch. I don't think we can do that. It's, we're old. And taking care of this place is not easy. I mean,
and we don't have kids. Most of the other winemakers and people that have vineyards, they have the next second generation coming in, and so it's like
we need to adopt somebody.
Yeah, it's true.
We need to find one of these young kids at the wine studies program, and adopt them. It's a huge opportunity. It really is. I mean, we're not making wine. We don't need to make wine, but somebody could make wine, a Pearlstad wine off of this, and it's already a market because, look at our customers. We have incredible customers. So you figure that if we made a wine, we could probably sell it.
We don't want to do it at our age because our current customers, they're out there pounding the pavement. It doesn't just happen. They work hard to make it happen. And
yeah, we don't need to. We don't need to make wine, but it's intriguing because it could work. There's a model there. If you look at Kiefer, you look at Kanzler, you look at Shea, and there are people out there that started out just selling grapes, and then over time, finally they realize that, wait a minute. These people are making my grapes famous. Maybe I should make some wine. It's not a dumb idea, but we're probably not going to do it. We're a little too old to sell wine.
Well, we need to back up for a moment because you mentioned that you met in college, but you did not say how. So I want to know the story of how you two met.
Okay, so we went to UC Riverside, and I was a year ahead. So
It was the latter 70s.
yeah, 75, 6, 7, I can't remember.
I started
long
in
time ago.
76, you started in
76. I
75.
started in 75. So I was living in the dorms my first year, and then I moved out, and I made a bunch of friends, and one of my friends was Dana's high school boyfriend. So Dana actually decided to come to Riverside anyway. So
I had a good scholarship, so.
yeah, she got a good scholarship. So Dana and another one of their friends came to Riverside, and so that's how we met. So so we've been together since '78.
Long time.
Long time.
And that's including having business together.
Yeah,
It's impressive.
yeah. No, we've had a good run. We've done a lot, and we really have. Half Moon Bay was fun, helping to start the brewery and be involved in the brewery was a blast, It's like,
We had
that's a lot of fun.
House right on the bluff.
Yeah, we had
with the beach right there, no one in front of you. It was.
Then we built a house. We bought the lot and built a house next door. It was called the Party House. It's all goes back to the Half Moon Bay Pinot Mafia. We built this party house. Upstairs was just one huge room like this, well, a lot bigger than this. Kitchen on one end, it goes all the way, and no bedrooms. And then downstairs was a workout room, like a gym, and a shop and a 4-car garage. There's no bedrooms.
That's the dream.
Yeah.
Oh, and the cellar where we had like 2,000 bottles of wine. So we partied like crazy there. Like we ended up with this mathematical rule that just sort of, we proved it somehow. It's the N+1. It seemed like the number of bottles at the end of the evening was always like, if you had 12 people, it was 13 bottles. If you had like 8 people, it was 9 bottles. So, but we partied every weekend. You had to, because we'd be getting.
Some of our neighbors like to go through our recycle bin just to see what they missed,
Yeah, so we'd get like 2 or 3 cases a week delivered, and we'd try and drink like 1 or 2 cases a week, and it just kept growing. Before we moved, we built so this is a double wide, pretty much. It's a nice house. But it's a manufactured home, and then we built the garage. In the garage, there's a gym and a pantry and a cellar. And the cellar is racked for, I think, 100 cases. So before we moved, we spent 2 years. We moved out of
Quit all the wine
all
clubs,
of our clubs.
and we just said, come help. Come help us,
Spent 2 years getting down from 200 cases to 100 cases. And we moved about 100 cases.
I need to make some friends like that. I need to make some friends who are like, come drink my wine.
Well, we would do it here. It's just we haven't quite, got it all together yet. But we used to just
We don't
open.
have the space,
Yeah, we don't have the space. Yeah, I mean, we would have huge parties every weekend just to drink all the wine, and we were the only ones. Everybody was like us. I had to make a rule that no wine. You can't bring.
You could bring one.
Yeah, but don't, no wine. This is my party, and you're drinking my wine. I need to get rid of my wine, not your wine. If you want to get rid of your wine, you have a party.
No, there'd be themes, you'd be like
We would do
13 different Hershes, all from the same year. So you get the hand.
horizontals, all kinds of stuff.
It'd be fun.
Yeah, I mean, Francione, so Santa Lucia Highlands is one of our favorites, and Rosella's Vineyard and Gary's Vineyard and Pisoni Vineyard, and they sell to like 13 customers. Rosella's, Gary Francione sells to 13 customers. So every year, and we were on every customer list, all 13. So every year, not every year, but when the new stuff would come out, we would do like a tasting. We would open up 13 of them, and then we would rate them and, figure out which one was the best. And it's kind of weird because it's really weird because the best Rosellas every year
Was out of
Napa.
yeah.
It was
Minor.
not. It was.
Minor.
Yeah, it was minor. Makes a Gary's and a Rosella
blind it
Pinot.
People, and everyone would always, but that's because of how it ages and things, it's good right out of the gate and versus other ones.
Yeah, I don't know,
time.
but it was weird that the best Santa Lucia Highlands wine came out of Napa.
Year
It's
after
year after year. What was the question?
How did you two meet?
How did we get there? So we've been together ever since.
He was the first one who ever got me drunk, because I was younger.
Yeah, so she's young. She's a couple years younger, so that's why we used to sneak her into the bars. And it's great because sometimes it worked, and you get to hang out, and sometimes it didn't. They just kick you out.
To this
But
day, I
so
still
what?
Don't drink beer because in college you drink so much, and it's like, no, not going there again.
I still drink beer.
Most definitely do.
So last question for the two of you. Looking back, tell me about proudest achievement or greatest accomplishment. What do you look back on with the most pride?
It's a tough question. But this project.
Probably this. We've done so many projects. We built houses and we built businesses, and I just feel like we really nailed it here. We really did. Like I said, I'm an industry analyst and an investor, and so we decided we wanted to be here, and we analyzed the hell out of this. We're like, if you're going to do this, what's the thing to do? Started out with 20 acres of Pinot and Dundee, and realized no, and I think we just nailed this. We really did. Right time, right place, right product, and you don't always do that. I've done lots of companies, and it's hard to do that. So I think of all the stuff we've done, this is probably the most satisfying. And also because it's totally ours. We don't have any partners. This is just us. And,
Yeah, because
Right when we actually finalized everything, Ivan couldn't do it at the time.
It was like he had a bunch of family stuff and he couldn't make it happen. And so we didn't really need a partner anyway. But we thought, I've always done stuff with partners. That's what you do as an investor. You put together an investment group, and it's, usually it adds strength.
I think something this small, though, it's better to not have to run decisions by someone else, and and who wants to mess with a friendship either.
Yeah, exactly. Ruin a 25-year friendship over a bottle of wine. But I think I've worked really hard. We have worked so hard. When Dana was still working and I was working this project, I was selling grapes like crazy before we had any grapes. I have a list.
He had his PowerPoint of see this and that.
I have a list of, I think it's up to 65 winemakers that have been up over, since we started. Because I just started, and it's just prospecting. You just start with one, you get an introduction to the next one, and you just keep going. And I met everybody. Everybody's been up here. Yeah, we had one of my favorites is. So I finally got. I didn't get Raj up, but I got Sashi to come up, and who was the winemaker there? The assistant winemaker when he was Dan, I think. And they came up, and there was nothing. We had just maybe cleared some of the brush, so you could start to see, the 18 or 20 acres, but we hadn't done anything to the land. And I have a picture of them standing up there, and it's one of these things you'll never forget, because Sashi's up at the very top. And he's here, and he turns and he looks at me and he goes, "You were going to have people lined up to buy grapes from this vineyard." And this is this is before we had a vineyard. And guess what?
it jazzed you.
It really does. We have people lined up. We have a waiting list of customers, potential customers. So that's one of those things you never forget, when you are going to have people lined up, and we really do. So it's kind of neat. So that's one of the reasons I think we really kind of nailed this, to actually have, in a time where some people can't give away their grapes, literally right now, can't give them away, we have people lined up to buy our grapes. And we, all of our customers, not all of our customers, I would say at least half of our customers want more. So when we had a couple of customers this year who said, can I cut down a little bit? Can I have, a little bit fewer, like a ton less here? And boy, the other customers are thrilled, because all it does is it just slides those grapes over to that customer who wants them anyway. This has been a great project, it really has. It's been very satisfying. That we're working with the greatest customers, and the people, and the industry. The industry is so tight here. You go to like the technical tastings, the Pinot technical tastings, the Chardonnay technical tastings, and I do them every year. We do every tasting we can do. And it's amazing how tight this industry is. All these people are like family. They grew up in the last 10, 20 years, they all grew up together, watching this industry grow and helping it grow and learning how to grow grapes and make wine. And you think about California, and there's maybe, there's probably 10 AVAs in California that are like this, right? You can't know California. You can't be in the community in California, the wine community, because there's 10 of them, like Anderson Valley. Those guys are weird. They're way out, they're out the deep Sonoma coast, Paso, the guys in Southern California. That's like, there are all these different, and they're different communities here. Willamette Valley, Pinot, and now Chardonnay. It's tight.
They're very supportive of each other.
Unbelievably
It's not as
supportive.
cutthroat in the sense of-
It's like family. And I guess what I'm trying to say is this is it. It's not, there aren't like 10 of these in Oregon. This is kind of it. This is your community. This is your family. Versus California, you might be in one of those families, but there's 9 other families. Here you kind of just get this one. Although there's Southern Oregon. It's a different world. But I think even Southern Oregon, there's a lot of communication between Southern Oregon and Willamette Valley still. But it's a great community. We love working with all these people. Everybody's been so great to us, really. I mean, they just haven't, they want to buy grapes, but it's not just that. It's great, we make, I think, real friends with some of these people because they're neighbors. They're not just customers. Our neighbors, our customers live like right here, within just a mile or two. And maybe it's 3 or 4, but they're all pretty close.
That's all the questions that I have for the two of you. Is there anything I didn't ask that I should have, or anything that we didn't cover today that you want to cover?
No, we've been really supportive of the Linfield program. So it turns out that Tim Matz, who took over the program when,
Great job.
when he left. So one of our CEOs at the Half Moon Bay Brewing Company who worked for us was really good friends with Tim. So the day that Tim showed up here, this guy calls and says, "Do you know him?" So he introduced us, and I got to know Tim pretty well. So that led to me getting a lot more involved in the university, and especially with the program, the wine room, and the tasting room, and all of that stuff. I think he did a great job. So
Paul's doing a pretty good job now, too.
yeah, so Paul Johnson, who is Seder Fire, he's a customer. He's been a customer since day one also, and he's great. He's done a really good job there. And so I think, I'm really happy to kind of be here, and this is so close. It's like, we're not talking about Davis. Davis is like this thing somewhere. We're talking about right here, right in this neighborhood, we have like this wine studies institute. And it's just this really great thing. It really, I think, adds an important aspect to the wine community here. really does. I mean, and the thing I love is just watching the young folks coming up and how that they really seem to be interested in this. You know, it's like when I was that age, yeah, we were buying $1.99 Blue Nun and all and enjoying it, but I don't think I had like that kind of a passion.
Plan.
Yeah, we didn't have a plan.
You know,
But we talk to these young kids and they have a plan. I'm going to do this and this and this, and it's like I didn't have a plan when I was that age.
Nor, I didn't either. Well, thank you for that, and thank you for supporting Linfield, and we look forward to more support in the future, more partnerships in the future. Thanks for sharing your story with us. We appreciate you taking the time and sharing your space and sharing your delicious cookies.
I have a couple of
yeah, I was
cookies
gonna
for
say,
the
take some
road.
cookies for the road.
We'll go ahead and let you off the hook. Thank you.